Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, we're going to talk about the fear of training to failure. Basically, if you don't train everything to failure, you're a failure. Before I get into this topic, if you guys need coaching, check out the link down below. Coaching is what I do for a living. All right, so let's talk about failure. I'm going to do a couple videos this week, just kind of point and shoot with the camera, get back to a little bit of the old school recording. So let's talk about training to failure or maximizing every set. There's kind of, you will see with some of these influencers and fitness personalities, basically, there has become this obsession, so to speak, with pushing every set all the time to failure. And while focusing on hard training is a good thing, it's certainly something that we want to do. It's certainly something that we have to keep our eye on, or else we're not going to see gains. Sometimes, as things often happen in the fitness world, in the muscle building world, things get unbalanced to the point where we create rules, or we create like these black and white scenarios that if you aren't pushing every set all the time to failure or near failure, you are a failure. You're not going to build muscle, and nothing could be further from the truth. This is borderline just over the edge and borderline. I'm trying to find the best way to say it, but it's really black and white, and lifting is a lot more nuanced than this. So you can take a beginner that's still trying to figure out what hard training is, and you can lay this burden on them that they have to train every set to failure, or they're not going to make any progress. So first off, I want to say that hard training is the key to muscle building, getting as much out of every set as you can. In the Massive Iron world, my world, the world I teach in, the principles that I teach, I try to teach maximizing every set. My first book, Massive Iron, the cornerstone of that book was pushing a set for as many quality reps as possible, stopping that set when you feel like you might fail on the next rep or when your form's going to break down. Basically, we want safe, sustainable training. In that book, I talk about maximizing every set. If you maximize every set, you're going to maximize every workout. If you're going to maximize every workout, you're going to maximize the muscle building process. So if you just look at what I wrote in that book, it can kind of feel like I have to maximize every set. Well, this is not the case. It's a general guideline. We want to get the most we can out of our training, obviously, but we're not robots. It's not black and white. It doesn't have to be 100%. And even if you have days, where you're not maximizing every set, you're not failing. You're still getting some value out of your training. The key here is to remember that training is a long-term process. If you want to maximize muscle, if you want to maximize strength, it's going to be a 5 to 10 year process. So you don't have to be perfect all the time. And that's what you kind of run into with these fitness influencers or this information you see disseminated on social media. Every set has to be to failure or it's junk volume. Not true. What I teach is that basically you want to be 70 to 80%, 100% of the time. What does this mean? Well, we're not robots. We have work stress, we have relationship stress, we have all kinds of things going on in life. Sometimes we're sick, we just have things going on. We can't be 100% all the time. This is a fool's game. It's a nonsense concept. So basically what I teach is you want to give as much as you can on any given day, and it doesn't have to be 100%. We're not trying to leave a way out, right? We're trying to make excuses, and I'm not trying to encourage you to, train weak, but being 70 to 80%, 100% of the time over the long run is going to get you where you want to go. Now, there are other factors involved. Many of you, most of you, a lot of you are still trying to figure out the muscle building process. You're still trying to figure out exercise form. You're still trying to figure out what hard training is. You're still trying to put all these pieces of the puzzle together. And if you jump into trying to maximize every set, there's a good chance before you understand hard training, before you understand proper exercise form, that you could beat up your body. I mean, on squats, for example, if we take this black and white mindset, this concept, everything has to be deep. And before you really understand form, you're going to end up getting yourself injured. Even on posterior lifts like squats and deadlifts and RDLs, we don't want to take that near failure. It's just going to get you injured. I have always, over the years, left a couple reps in the tank on these exercises. And you know what? It's not junk volume. I have gotten extremely strong at these exercises. My back has grown as a response to deadlifts. My quads have grown in response to squats. So I guess the point here is that it's not as simple as pushing every set to failure. You got to make sure you understand your form. And even then, on the big posterior lifts, we're not going to failure. We're trying to safely advance. And progressive overload, when you safely advance on these lifts, is going to lead to size. So there's a lot of nuance here when it comes to this whole concept. We have to get our form down. We have to understand how to control the weight and get the most out of every set. And I will tell you, just as kind of an endpoint, to address this fear, because there's a fear that you're going to have junk volume, that you're going to waste sets. You want to get as much out of you as you can out of every set. Even if every set for every exercise isn't pushed to failure, you can still get a lot of value out of those sets. On seated cable rows, for example, I focus on controlling the weight, driving the elbows back, getting a good feel. Even if you're not pushing every set to the limit, to failure or near failure, that doesn't mean that the sets you don't push are junk volume. I start my clients on about 50% hard sets, and I believe this is a reasonable starting point at minimum. And I want you guys to remember this, because this is something the dogmatists or the fitness influencers really aren't going to tell you. Maybe they don't believe in, and maybe they don't believe in this nuance. But as long as you're pushing one set for every exercise to beat the logbook, to beat what you did last time deep, not to failure, but for maximum safe quality reps, as long as you're pushing one set for every exercise routinely, most of the time, over a period of 5 to 10 years, you're going to build all the muscle and strength you want. It's not as simple as I have to push every set. As long as you're pushing one set of every exercise for maximum safe quality reps, you're in a good place. I mean, it can kind of get silly at a point where we believe that, you see some guys seeking or pushing more minimal type of training, 1 to 2 sets, per exercise. That's fine. Do what you want to do, right? But on the other hand, if you do 3 sets and only 1 is pushed for maximum safe quality reps, somehow the first couple of sets are junk volume. There's still value in having a base of mechanical stress or mechanical tension, even if every set isn't always pushed to failure. So on lat pull downs, for example, you could do, say you're using 130 pounds. You could do 10 reps and 10 reps and then maximum safe quality reps, and build in some cumulative volume, a little bit of pre-fatigue. The last set's push for maximum reps. You're trying to beat the logbook. And then, maybe you move up because you did beat the logbook. You move up to 140 pounds. Those first 2 sets that weren't trained to failure are still moving up. So you're going to have a volume increase. You're going to have an intensity increase. The way I always like to dumb down hypertrophy is that you view it as an external stress, putting pressure on the body. And when you cumulatively increase that external stress through progressive overload, you are forcing the body to respond. And it's not a simple formula of every set has to be to failure or else I'm not going to build muscle. We need to progress. You need to progress. And progression is going to involve pushing at least one set for every exercise to try to beat the logbook. That's going to be hard training. That's going to be what many call training to failure and what I call pushing for max safe reps. But if you start with 3 sets of 10 reps at 100 pounds, and you only push the last set for maximum safe quality reps, and you end up with 3 sets at 200, for 10 reps, the increase in stress and pressure you're putting on the body is going to cause the body to respond because you have been pushing. You can't go from 3 sets of 10 at 100 pounds to 3 sets of 10 at 200 pounds on a lift and not have progressive overload and not have hard sets and not have sets pushed to the limit. Does that make sense? So it's kind of built into progressive overload. If you are progressively overloading, there's a strong likelihood that at least one set of every exercise has been pushed deep into this failure maximum safe quality rep zone. So the bottom line is, guys, relax a little bit. It's a long-term process. This black and white stuff that every set needs to be trained to failure, it really doesn't do service to the reality of what it takes to complete a long journey. A long journey in hypertrophy is really about taking care of your body. It is about putting on, having consistent pressure and stress over a long period of time, a consistent focus on progressive overload. And if you start at point A and at point B, you're a lot stronger than you are now. Progressive overload is going to be built into the system. Training hard, training deep, training to failure, training to max safe reps is going to be built into the system. Again, I'm not trying to encourage you guys to train weak. I'm not trying to encourage you guys to use junk volume. There is certainly junk volume, but in this type of a mix, junk volume is really not in the mix. Junk volume really is just doing volume that has no progression approach, volume that has no eye on maximizing a set or getting the most out of every rep you can. You can get the most out of every rep you can, and that set, not every set has to be to failure if the context of that exercise is pushing for progressive overload and you're pushing that exercise up and up and up. Again, not an excuse to train weak. Early in my training, I pushed every set for maximum safe quality reps. That's the basis of my rep goal system. What I would say to you guys as a final note, I start my clients with about 50% of their sets pushed for max safe quality reps, a pretty reasonable starting point. You're going to get into the gym and you're going to get on an exercise and you're going to learn that exercise, and you can adjust that exercise based on feel. Because this is part of the nuance that gets lost as well, that we can't adjust the exercise on feel. If you feel like 2 sets is the golden spot for you on seated cable rows, and maybe pull-ups beat you up, so you like to get in a couple sets of 8 and then maybe do a max set with 45-pound plate or whatever, you have the freedom to adjust based on the demands of each individual exercise, as long as each exercise has a progression approach. So don't be afraid, don't fall into this black and white pit that it's either this or that, or it's all junk volume. It's nonsense. You can adjust how many sets you push deeply per exercise based on the demands of that exercise. And at the end of the day, a long-term process, it's always going to treat you well if you have the basic common sense pillars in place. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.